Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Tuesday, September 15th. I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Tough opener for Kansas State on Saturday. The Wildcats were upset by Arkansas State and now must wait a week to resume their schedule. Oh, by the way, the next K-State game is at Oklahoma. Beat writer Kellis Robinett stops by to break down the game he covered on Saturday, what went wrong and right for the Wildcats. After a break, you'll hear it straight from the head coach. We dropped in on Chris Klieman's news conference earlier today, and you'll hear his assessment of the game. So here we go with Kellis Robinett. Kellis, how you doing today?
Good, Blair. Glad to be back on your podcast.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. We got some college football to talk about. Finally, a game in the book.
Finally.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about college football for months, but finally a game to digest and to break down, and not a happy outcome for Kansas State, and by extension, the Big 12. It was like a little virus. Oh, baby, bad choice of words there. But tough day for the Big 12 on Saturday with Kansas State losing to Arkansas State, Kansas losing to Coastal Carolina, and then Iowa State. That was, to me, the biggest surprise of the three was Iowa State losing to Louisiana Lafayette. But let's talk about the Wildcats and what went wrong after things went right for them early. 21-7 lead, blocked a punt. I thought when they blocked the punt right off the bat, it was like, yeah, look, they this is a good time to do it. They're probably taking advantage of a program that didn't get to work against this sort of thing. And but in the end, it wasn't enough, right? It was not enough to overcome what I think is probably was an overlooked and underrated Arkansas State team that's very well coached and has at least one player who I think will get a lot of NFL interest. We can talk about him in a minute, but how about general thoughts on the game, Kellis?
Yeah, I mean, boy, you got a little bit of everything in this game, really. The great start, the bad finish, players missing the game with, use your imagination for whatever reasons. There are about like 25 players watching in street clothes. Starting center goes down on the third play of the game. Starting safety goes down on the second series. Nickelback needs replaced by the end of the game. They're playing a third string center, a third string safety. Everything you could kind of imagine added up to contribute in this loss. But I guess the things I kind of think back to most in this one are, what kind of changed after Kansas State took the 21-7 lead that you mentioned? Because up until that point, really there was no cause for concern. Arkansas State did put one drive together, but otherwise Kansas State was, it looked like they were going to go on to win, and not only win, but cover the spread. I think the big changing point in the game was Arkansas State realized that the Wildcats were playing just a little bit too aggressively on offense, burned them with a double pass, actually burned them later in the game with a double pass and a fake punt. And that's actually what burned Kansas State last year in the bowl game. They lost to Navy on a double pass in the fourth quarter. So that'll be something that needs to be addressed. But it's just really hard to evaluate everything overall when you look at just how many players were out. I know Arkansas State had players out too, so you can't just sit back and say, that it's a horrible excuse or anything like that. But at the same time, the running game wasn't really working. The defense fell apart in the second half. Skylar Thompson was just inches off with his receivers all day. It's kind of interesting, depending on who you talk to. You could talk to 5 different people, and those 5 different people would blame 5 different things for this loss. Can't really recall the last time I watched a game where that was the case.
Yeah. Well, so much to unpack here. Let's start with this idea that I think we may have seen where we think there should be a little bit of disparity in talent between a program like Kansas State from the Big 12 and Arkansas State from the Sun Belt. I think that disparity shrinks a little bit when one program gets spring practice in and takes care of some issues, and the other one didn't. Right? And Kansas State did not, and that was the case throughout those Sun Belt upsets over the Big 12. But just zeroing in on K-State, they were already inexperienced on the offensive line when it comes to game reps, and it just didn't help that they suffered some injuries there. And I thought that it really affected them in the running game. This is a Kansas State team that under Chris Klieman, as we know from his years at North Dakota State, wants to control the clock, control the game, win the battle up front, and wear defenses down in the second half. And Kansas State just unable to do that. I think because of the offensive line just kind of isn't ready yet.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And that's one area where at North Dakota State, Chris Klieman always had the best offensive line pretty much in the country. Those guys would come out and dictate the game and open up everything else, not just for the running game, the passing game, the quarterback. I think that's why guys like Carson Wentz and Easton Stick and now Trey Lance have looked so good there. And they had shades of that last season with five senior starters up front. They weren't spectacular by any means, but they were solid. You knew what you were going to get every week. And now you're replacing all those guys. And not only are you replacing all those guys, but it seemed like they really didn't know what combinations they wanted to go with. The group they ran out there to start with only played, I believe, 3 plays together the entire game. And then after that, they moved Noah Johnson. He got hurt. He was at center. They tried moving him to guard, and they moved Ben Adler, who was a guard, to center, and they tried that for a while, just switching him. When that didn't work, they pulled Johnson from the game and put in another center, and they were switching left tackles, they were switching right tackles. Pretty much the only guy who stayed in the same spot all game was their left guard, Josh Rivas. And for an inexperienced line, I just don't know, that was maybe the right path to take there. Certainly didn't build any continuity, and it showed because their favorite thing to do is to run between the tackles, and clearly their game plan was, at least on first down, let's give the ball to starting running back Harry Trotter and have him gain 4 or 5 yards so we're in second and medium, and we can work from there. But Harry Trotter only averaged 2.7 yards per run, and there were some stats that surfaced online that showed when they ran through the tackles, that dropped all the way down to like 1.5, something like that. So every time they tried to run behind center, behind guard, they were getting nothing. So basically, Arkansas State found a way to completely negate their favorite play. And if you take away running between the tackles, that's going to downgrade everything else Kansas State does. And I'm not sure if it's completely the offensive line to blame. Maybe it's play calling, because when they did go try to run outside and get a little bit more creative, they had better luck. That's what you saw with Deuce Vaughn when he came in the game and had some good runs. They were all to the outside. Even Harry Trotter, the 1 touchdown run he had, was off tackle to the right side. So they've definitely got some things to figure out in that department.
Yeah, but with 31 points, you would think that would have been enough to get the job done in a in a non-conference game. But
and the crazy thing is, it really could have been more. If Skylar Thompson would have just hit some open receivers, they could have had like 50. They weren't.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. I thought Skylar Thompson was off. Just misfired, overthrew guys. Not to be unexpected in with the unusual situation, but still, I thought maybe with his experience and working hard in the time that Kansas State had to get ready for this game, we wouldn't see as much of that, but it ended up hurting Kansas State. There were opportunities that the Wildcats left on the field.
Yeah, big time. And I think that's why a lot of people will look back at this one and be so frustrated in it, because the one thing that was working, everything else bad we've talked about so far, the one thing that was working was the passing game, which is kind of funny because they only had like 4 active scholarship receivers playing. But that was one thing that was working. They got players open downfield. And even with Skylar Thompson missing, he still completed 17 passes for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, those numbers right there just alone aren't so bad. But there were, the thing I keep thinking back to is even the play that everybody really loved. It was on one of SportsCenter's top 10s, was the one-handed grab Malik Knowles made, where he jumped up and brought down a pass for, I don't know how long it was, but, a 20-something yard gain. While it was a heck of a grab by Knowles, it was just a terrible pass by Skylar Thompson. If he puts it on the money, he catches it and walks into the end zone. So that to me is one of the things I remembered all day. And there were other times in the game where receivers couldn't catch that pass. It was just a little bit overthrown. And he really could have had an extra touchdown pass to Sebastian Taylor, could have had another 50-yard bomb to Malik Knowles. that was the thing all day. If Thompson would have been on top of his game, he could have had about 400 yards passing. And while I wouldn't put this loss on him, he certainly didn't step up and win the game either.
Yeah, I remember that play to Knowles on TV. There was nobody else in the camera shot.
Yeah,
It was only him. And I remember after he caught it and went down, I'm waiting for an Arkansas State player to show up, in the picture, and that's how open he was. You're right. If that's a decent pass, and Knowles doesn't have to go up and make a spectacular grab, he does. At least he gets close to the end zone anyway. Well, and speaking of spectacular grabs, one that didn't count, but I think left an impression on everyone was the Jonathan Adams similar play in the end zone earlier, where he reached up with one hand and pulled it down, could not maintain control of it when he went to the ground. But that play showed everybody what a remarkable player he is. And he proved it time and again throughout the game. Even though his stats weren't eye-popping, I think he was under 100 yards receiving. He made big play after big play, and wow, what a talent! I mean, I think he was the best player on the field on Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You want to talk about a productive day: 8 catches, 98 yards, 3 touchdowns, and they only targeted him 10 times. And one of those incompletions where we were talking about, where he maybe probably deserved to actually get the catch. So, you talk about a great guy to target in the red zone. Holy cow. I know a lot of Big 12 teams out there that would love to have him. I bet K-State would trade for him right now if they could. I said it after the game. I think he's probably going to end up being one of the best receivers they see all season. And that's knowing that they've got an entire Big 12 slate in front of them.
Right, and playing in a conference that always produces NFL wide receivers. So, okay, so K-State has this week off. I thought it was smart for the Big 12 to schedule the way that they have. They're playing on September 12th, but keeping the 19th open, as we're seeing, with 2 games that were postponed from Saturday are being played this week. Baylor is playing and Oklahoma State are playing this week when they were originally scheduled to play last week, and then the conference schedule begins in earnest with everybody in action, scheduled to be in action on September 26th. So, Kellis, to kind of bottom line the whole thing, does the outcome on Saturday change your outlook for Kansas State, or were the circumstances just so different and so strange that you look at this as their a continuation of their preseason, and then they start the conference play anew?
I'm not picking them to win 7 games anymore like I did preseason. I think that'll be awfully tough for them. But I wouldn't write off 5 or 6 wins at this point. I don't think this loss was, anything that should make you jump off the bandwagon just quite yet. Especially compared to like what happened in Lawrence, where Kansas was down 28-0 before they even got moving against Coastal Carolina. If that happened in this game and they were just completely blown away, then I would sit back and say, boy, this team has got some issues. But just think about all the people they were down. They didn't have Joshua Youngblood, he was a freshman All-American kick returner. They didn't have Khalid Duke, who was their the guy they talked about all preseason as being a huge difference maker on defense. Go down the line. They were down 25 players. They were out without their starting center. The guy who they put in charge of trying to help double Jonathan Adams in that last play was a third-string safety who was playing quarterback when camp began. So, I can't just sit here and say, boy, K-State really just, booted that game away. I can't say that. I don't love their chances against Oklahoma after what I saw, but you know what? If they can get all these guys back, find a way to avoid COVID the rest of the season, I see no reason why they couldn't, after those first 2 games, go ahead and still beat TCU, beat Tech, beat KU, beat West Virginia. What did those teams? What have those teams showed us so far that makes us think that K-State can't beat them? I'm not ready to say their season's lost or anything like that, but it does diminish it a little bit for sure.
Yeah, well, I think Iowa State's in play as well after
Definitely.
seeing the Cyclones on Saturday. What a disappointing loss that is for Matt Campbell and that program. Okay, Kellis, it was great catching up with you, and we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will hear from Chris Klieman, who met the media later on Tuesday. Kellis, thanks a lot.
Yep, anytime, Blair.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
From the football game, didn't go the way we wanted it to go. A lot of things played into that. You can say COVID played into that. It sure did. You can say lack of spring ball played into that. It sure did. Lack of summer training. It sure did. Losing time in fall camp, losing players, all that stuff. It did. But the bottom line is you have an opportunity to compete. You have an opportunity that you don't know how many opportunities we're going to have this year. And we talked about that. Are we going to play 9 more? Are we going to play 2 more? None of us know this. So when you have the opportunity to compete, you have to take advantage of your opportunity in your moment. And I thought Arkansas State, you can tell they played a game. They were much better prepared than we were since they'd played a game, and they outplayed us. Our guys have to learn from that. Our guys have to learn that if the first guy goes down, the second guy goes down, third guy goes down, it doesn't matter. You're wearing K-State, and you have to make plays. And we didn't make enough plays. Young guys that played, to older guys that have played, to new guys that haven't played. And so we've had a lot of conversations amongst our staff, a lot of conversations with the team. We didn't practice yesterday. We met an awful long time with players, leadership council, to team meetings, to unit meetings, to position meetings, and really had some tough conversations. I believe moving forward, there's going to be some positive things coming out of those conversations, mainly because we don't know what 2020, none of us do, and none of us have a crystal ball to see what's going to happen the rest of the fall of 2020. But we need to be better, bottom line. So we'll open up for questions.
Scott Fritchen.
Yeah, hey, Chris. Among all the games on Saturday, Briley Moore tied for the most receptions by a tight end in the nation. Just what impressed you the most about Briley in his first performance? And maybe how has he already answered the call?
I knew Briley was going to play well. He'd had a really good camp, and he's probably one of the hungriest guys we have on the football team. He has a chip on his shoulder because nobody thought he was good enough to play in the Big 12 or at any Power 5. He has come in and gained instant respect from our older guys that have played a lot of football to say, boy, this kid's a really good player. But more than that, he handles his business. He practices hard. He competes. He holds people accountable. He does all the right things. And I think we can get more out of Briley Moore. And that's what I'm going to challenge Briley to, is that he needs to be more for us moving forward. But so impressed with how he just came right in and made plays. And I know that he's going to have a terrific season.
And just, it struck me, you had Deuce Vaughn, you had Will Howard. I think it counted a total of 5 true freshmen that saw action in the season opener. And this comes after last year's season opener when you had 3 true freshmen play. Just how would you assess this true freshman class right now, even the ones we didn't see on Saturday? And could you see an uptick in true freshman production during this season, unlike any other?
Yeah, that's a great question. Very pleased with the athleticism and the knowledge of the freshman class. We're a long ways to go in our maturity level with the freshman class. Not that they can't get there to have more guys help us, Will Howard's a really, really mature kid. Deuce Vaughn's a really mature kid. TJ Smith played a little bit for us on Saturday, very mature. I can't think of all the freshmen that played, but to play the game at the Power 5 level, you have to have great maturity and great discipline, and that's difficult for an 18-year-old. The two guys that you did mention in Will and Deuce have that, and that's why they were able to step up and look like they belong, is they have great maturity and discipline. And so we're going to continue to practice all these guys, young and old, because once again, going back to my opening statement, you just don't know when your moment will be, and you have to take advantage of the opportunities you have.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Kellis?
Hey, Chris. Noah Johnson and Jerome McPherson were two guys who started Saturday's game but weren't able to finish it. What would you say their outlook is moving forward?
They won't. Neither one will practice this week. It's not season ending for either one, but it'll be a week-to-week basis. Both guys that had terrific fall camps, both guys that we were all counting on, and unfortunately both guys did get injured early on, and which allowed other people to have the opportunity. But we're a better team with Noah on the field, and we're a better team with Jerron on the field.
And I was curious, when you went back and got to, rewatch things and take it all in, how would you rate the way Skylar played, putting up some pretty good numbers, but also barely missing on some of those throws?
Yeah, he needs to play better. He knows that. He made some really, really good throws, made some really good reads. He was banged up. I think everybody saw that in the second half. But Skylar will respond, and everybody needs to play better. It doesn't matter if you're an O-lineman to the quarterback to the safeties to linebackers, D-line. Everybody does. And so we all need to improve.
Derek?
Yeah, Coach, it was said that Tyler Burns would maybe be one of the backs to get a lion's share of the carries, and it didn't really turn out that way. Was there anything that happened that prevented that from being the case?
Nothing in particular. I think it was more Coach Mess and Coach Anderson and how the game was being played out. And then in the second half, we weren't playing with a lead, so we had to probably rely on throwing the football a little bit more than what we wanted to. We weren't having great success rushing the football, especially inside. So we thought that Deuce, and I think everybody saw that, is a really effective running back on the perimeter. And we thought he gave us a better chance on the perimeter with all the backs that we had. And so nothing that anybody did. It's just kind of how the game played out.
And with your safeties, you're kind of dealing with some injuries, not with just Jerome McPherson, but Wayne Jones as well. Is there any others that you're going to really try to ramp up and get ready for conference play?
Well, another guy that we were counting on that wasn't available was Ross Elder. Ross has had a terrific camp and has played some football for us, so we hope to get him back in the near future as well. We have to continue to improve at safety, both the free and the strong. We have to continue to build depth so that we have more guys that can play 20 snaps, 30 snaps, and not have to rely on somebody playing 70 snaps. But it's a position that we have some young players at that we think are talented, but there's a lot of nuances to playing in the secondary at the college level, and especially in our scheme. And even though we need to simplify it so those guys can play, it's still, and Coach Klieman and I have been together for a long time, of understanding, are you ready to play in that moment? And you have to prove that you're ready by how you perform at practice and making sure that you do know the reads and do know the calls and do know the communication. And if guys in our mind aren't comfortable in that in practice, they sure aren't going to be in the game. That's why we also have this open week, and hopefully everybody will be healthy to be able to practice, that we can get some more guys that are younger players some repetitions.
Yeah, Coach, I know you touched on a couple things pretty, but just in regards to Deuce, kind of going back to how he got to K-State, can you just talk a little bit about how he got on the radar? I know he had some amazing high school stats, but what did you guys see from that eye?
The explosiveness, for sure. The quick twitch, the ability for a young man that's not of great size to break arm tackles. And everybody worries about a smaller back. Can they be durable? Can they take those hits? Well, when you're not getting a square shot on guys because they're so quick, you're not taking some of those big hits. And then when he came in the summer with his mother, and I knew right then that he was a fit for what we wanted to do and what we wanted to build upon as far as character and integrity with he and his mom. And then his dad, being in the profession of coaching and now scouting in football, I know he'd been around what it's supposed to be like at the highest level, and how you're supposed to be a professional, and how you're supposed to act, and how you're supposed to have great discipline and maturity. And we were jumping up and down when we were able to get his commitment, because we know that he's a generational guy. And you say, well, that's a big term to say, a generational guy. I think as much as what he can do off the field for our football team is what he can do on the field.
Yeah, and just kind of following up on that, throughout the stadium, whenever he touched the ball on Saturday, there was a certain energy. You talked about that after the game. Did you expect the fans that were in the building kind of pick up on that right away as soon as he was touching the football?
As soon as you saw him run one time, I think everybody did, like, holy cow. He's an electric player. And not only is he an electric player, but he's a better person, which is what I'm so excited about for his future.
Cool. Thanks, Coach.
You bet.
John?
Yeah, Chris, after having a chance to watch the film of the game, do you come away feeling more or less encouraged, I guess, than when we last talked to you right after?
It's a good question. It's hard for me to answer. Still disappointed, still frustrated in a number of things, but I have to kind of pause some, because this is just one of those years, John, that I just don't know. I mean, to think that you're going to be out as many guys potentially as you are because of COVID, or to get guys back for 2 days and they have been out for 14 days, and then they're going to practice for a couple days in practice. I'm not saying any of those things are excuses. They're not. We need to be better. It's just from a management standpoint, from the head coach to the assistants to the players, you don't know who you're practicing with on a daily basis. Offensively, you don't know who you're working with in the O-line. You don't know who you're throwing the ball to. You don't know if that corner or that safety, if that's the same guys. And so that's what we're dealt with. And I wish you'd say, well, we're going to get everybody back and everything's going to be fine. I don't know. I don't think any of us know. And so, once again, there's no coaching 101 for this. I've talked to some head coaches around the country that we're all dealing with the same stuff, and nobody has the exact answer. This is how you're supposed to do this. And so we're just going to keep learning on the fly and coach the guys that we have for that day really, really hard and really well, so that when they have the chance to play, they're ready to play. And we may have that guy, and 2 days later get him ready, and then he's gone. That's something you just don't think about as part of college football, but it is right now in college football. And so every week we're going to work with the guys that we have and cross our fingers that we continue to do the right things with hygiene and masking and social distancing, so that we can keep guys around.
I asked about the trick plays too, hurt you guys on Saturday. How fine of a line is it, especially defensively, about those two, between being aggressive, making sure you're still aggressive on defense? And
it goes back to discipline. It doesn't go back to aggression, non-aggression. It goes back to what are my rules and principles of the defense. If I follow my rules and principles of the defense and I don't lose my eyes, I'll be fine. We have the answers for everything. We have the answer for the double pass. We have the answer for whatever the Philly special, throwing it to the quarterback. If I follow my rules and principles within the framework of the defense, we have somebody assigned to everything. If I don't follow the rules and principles on not only a trick play, but it could be a normal play, just a normal run, whatever, you're not going to be successful. And those are the things that as a staff we have to continue to try to keep preaching, whether it's a young player that only has had that snap 10 times or an older player that's had that snap 190 times. If I follow my rules and principles, I'll be fine.
Surrenders.
Coach, I'm curious. You said a number of times, how there's nothing to compare to this season, right? I've tried to compare it in the pros when they had strikes in '82, in '87, and how coaches had to adjust. One, the scab players that played in '87, and there was a game where Bill Walsh ran the option, right, against Bill Parcells. And there's a great NFL films where he's just like shrugs his shoulders. They're looking across the field at each other like, "What do you want me to do?" Right. So I'm curious, you mentioned all the people coming and going. Do you view this season as we have to do what we want to be doing 2 and 3 years from now, that this is, in some ways, you've got to sacrifice? Maybe you could make some adjustments for the short term to try to win right now. But the big picture is you want to play the way you want to play. And so you're going to continue to do what's going to be best for the team when everybody's back, right? When quote unquote normal returns, to build the philosophy and approach that you want versus maybe some kind of, for lack of a better term, a trick or something that could be a shortcut to maybe getting you some success right away.
Great question, Sren. And if I were in year 8, I'd say let's try to throw some gimmicks in there. Let's try to fool some people. But we're in year 2. And so we are going to follow our philosophy and rules and principles, even if that is playing at a position where we're down, if that's playing at somewhere where we're not as equipped as we are in other spots, because this is an absolute marathon for me here and not a sprint. I'm not sprinting to say I have to do this so that I can go get another job, or I can do this, or I can help this. We as a staff are making sure that this is a marathon so that we as a staff are here for the long term. And I'm not a quick fix guy. That'd be different if I said, hey, let's go get 15 JCs because we don't know if we're going to lose guys. We're going to go get 15 D1 transfers. That's not my philosophy. That's not our philosophy. Our philosophy as a program and as a staff. So we've had this conversation as a staff on Sunday. Do we get to the gimmicky? Do we do this? And we all collectively as a staff said, this is who we are, and this is who we have been at a previous institution, and we aren't going to change that. And so are we going to maybe take some lumps periodically this year? We may have to, because I don't want to say come spring of 21, all right, let's go back to what we wanted to try to do, because now I think you've lost a ton of time. Hope that answers it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is now your second year, right, playing up in a bigger league versus a lot of experience playing where you kind of have that opportunity to point to the big boy, the Big 12 team that was on your schedule. I'm curious, just now having played several of those games, I know I think it was Nichols last year. You had some games where you were the hunted, for lack of a better term. Anything you've taken on that you've noticed is different or maybe surprising about being the big dog when the smaller school comes into play that maybe you didn't see from the other side?
No, because I did see it from the other side, so I caution the guys all the time. Football is football. It's why Bradley Moore played so well. Bradley had a chip on his shoulder. He wanted to experience Big 12 football. Some guys just want to be on a Big 12 roster as opposed to playing big boy Big 12 football. And I'm a big believer, and you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times, football is football. And it doesn't matter what school you're at, where you're from. If you're a 5-star to a no-star like Carson Wentz was, you have an opportunity to play, and you get a chance to play this great game. If you don't have your A game, you're going to get beat. And we know that in the NFL. You guys see that in the NFL every Sunday. But it's no different in college football. And in an era right now where you don't know who's going to be around for game 1 to game 2 because of some of the issues we're dealing with COVID, I think it really levels the playing field in the fact of I wouldn't want to go into a game saying, oh, these guys are out 9 of their starters due to COVID. So I think guys would relax and say, oh, well, this is probably going to be a cakewalk. You're going to get beat by the backups. It doesn't matter, because if you have a chip on your shoulder and want to prove somebody, you're going to do that because there's so much parity in the game of football.
And then just a kind of a housekeeping question. You mentioned that they had the game in advance, and I know this wasn't the schedule you set out to, and beggars can't be choosers, right? You mentioned how thankful you were to get to play the game. But just so I'm thinking forward, would you ever schedule a game with a team that's played a game before you for your opener if it weren't a COVID time, or is that something you would?
You would rather not. You would rather not, but it depends. Is it a 12-game year? Then somebody can add a game that's from a different league, or I don't know. Just like everybody else doesn't know in the distant future what's going to happen with week 0. Is that going to be a week that a lot of people play? Then you're kind of stuck, because sometimes those week 0 games become, hey, let's get a game going, and then you've already got your schedule, and the team you're playing in week 1 gets an opportunity to play in week 0 for a money game. They're going to do it. So typically, no, you wouldn't want to. You'd want everybody to be in that first game. You bet.
Thank you, Coach.
You bet. Thanks, Ron.
Last one right here, Blair.
Hey, Coach, I just wanted to know to what extent spirit and confidence was shaken by Saturday's outcome, and if you had to spend some time just working on that the last few days.
No, probably going back to all the things that we've been asked with other questions of spirit and things like that. No, if you're not ready to play, you're going to get beat. And not saying we weren't ready to play. I thought we had a good week of preparation. But in the same respect, there's a lot of good football players across the country at every level. And so you need to play really well with whoever you have, or you are going to get beat. But we've had a lot of conversations on the football team over the last 48 hours about what we all can do to be better. And that's just not on the field. That's off the field. That's doing the little things right. That's making all of our meals, getting to our tutor sessions on time, being respectful in the academic center, being respectful to our athletic trainers. All the little things, in my mind, come back to bite you. And it's easy to talk about it after a loss, but all the little things that you don't do correctly from a discipline standpoint can come back to bite you. And some of those things, not all, but some of those things did on Saturday. So probably more of an awakening, not to a coaching staff. I think our coaching staff knew that some of these things could happen, but to an older kid, a younger kid, that we got to tighten our ship a little bit here. And that's the challenge to our guys. And I'm excited because we have challenged those guys. And I'm looking forward to seeing how guys respond, not just in a week. You don't tighten the ship in a week, but over the next 3 months, whether that's 2 games or 9 games.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. Tip of the cap to Kellis Robinett for stopping by and talking Kansas State football. Links to his stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, earlier in the episode, you heard me talk about the Sports Pass offer. It still stands and still a good one, $30 for a year's worth of sports coverage, and that includes Sports Extra that comes with the e-edition. There's more than 50 additional pages of national sports coverage today. Well, here's an even better offer. Buy the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. That's account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode.